Hello and welcome back to the VBAC podcast. Today we are going to talk about anterior placentas. And this is one that I like because I remember Googling, can I still have a VBAC with an anterior placenta with my second pregnancy and my first VBAC? So let's dive into this question.
Hey, Mama Bear, was your last birth a C-section and you have been dreaming of a vaginal birth ever since? Maybe you are newly pregnant and planning a VBAC, but struggling to get straight answers and support. If you're dreaming of a healing, positive, and peaceful vaginal birth after cesarean, you're in the right place. Welcome to the VBAC podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Zaki, and I am a licensed practical nurse, international board certified lactation consultant, and birth doula. I'm also a mama to 4 little bears and a 3-time VBAC mama. My mission is to help you cultivate confidence for a positive and peaceful VBAC.
This is a disclaimer that any of the information, experiences, opinions, and stories told on this podcast are with the intention of inspiring, educating, and informing parents. This information is not intended to treat or diagnose any medical conditions. If you have questions, you must consult your provider. Jamie Zaki does not accept liability for any decisions that you make after listening to this podcast.
Hey mama, do you have an anterior placenta and are you worried that that is going to reduce your ability to have a VBAC? Let's dive into the concerns about anterior placentas. What is an anterior placenta and how it will or will not impact your VBAC? So a lot of women are concerned about an anterior placenta, and an anterior placenta is a placenta that has embedded in the front of your uterus. So like on the belly side of your uterus versus the back side of your uterus, which would be posterior. You can also, you can have a low-lying placenta. You can have a fundal placenta technically. But one of the concerns I hear a lot is, well, if I have a scar on the front of my placenta or on the front of my uterus, and then my placenta adheres over my scar, isn't that going to be a problem? Yes and no. Placenta previa is a serious concern. Cut and retry. Placenta accreta is a serious concern. Placenta accreta is when your placenta basically, instead of attaching to your uterus in the normal way, it like embeds deep into the lining of your uterus and can even like go beyond that. And that can be extremely dangerous. That can be extremely concerning. And having a cesarean scar does increase the risk of that and increase the chance of that happening, but it doesn't mean that it's going to happen, if that makes sense. Your scar being on the front, first of all, does not mean that it's covering, or your placenta being in the front does not mean that it's covering your scar. Your placenta being in the front kind of moves. So even if it's over, it doesn't move, like actually move. But if you imagine blowing up a balloon and you put a little dot on it and you blow the balloon up, that dot's going to change relative position to the opening of the hole, right? So we talk about this same concept with placenta previa, where the uterus grows and it kind of takes the placenta away from the danger zone. It's kind of the same with the scar. Of course, if it's already attached over the scar, it's already attached over the scar. I don't believe that being attached to the scar inherently is a problem unless there are signs that it has embedded into the scar. It could increase your risk for hemorrhaging potentially. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stop you from being able to have a VBAC. What are the risks of an anterior placenta? An anterior placenta sometimes can be a reason for a malpositioned baby. It can encourage a baby to go breech. It might be associated with different malpositioning. However, that doesn't mean that your baby is going to be breech because you have an anterior placenta. Personal story, personal experience, I had an anterior placenta with my breech baby. He flipped breech at 39 weeks, though. Before we continue with this episode of the VBAC podcast, I wanted to take a quick moment to remind you of all of the VBAC resources available to you at littlebearlactation.com/links. If you click the link in the show notes, it'll take you to my resource page where you can access the free Combating Fear During VBAC course. You can also learn more about the VBAC with Confidence Complete Birth Prep program, and you can learn more about contributing to the VBAC podcast to help support the podcast and keep this information available, free, and coming for all moms planning a VBAC. If you are ready to stop being controlled by fear and start feeling empowered as you prepare for your VBAC, check out the link in the show notes now. So, fast forward to baby number 2, planning for a VBAC. My son was breech until about 34 weeks, 32, 34 weeks. I suddenly can't remember that time frame. Normal time to flip. I also had an anterior placenta with him, and he flipped head down at the end of my pregnancy and stayed head down. So I don't want you getting too caught up in having an anterior placenta and finding things to risk yourself out of VBAC. I don't want you getting too caught up in finding things to be convinced it increases your risk. Things might slightly increase your risk, but there's so many variables, so many things that can increase your risk that are intangible, that I don't think getting super concerned over something like an anterior placenta is worth your energy. I think all that's going to do is tell your mind and your brain, and then therefore your body, that now this is a lot more dangerous when it's probably not. And you're just going to set yourself up for a worse experience. So, short answer, yes, you can still have a VBAC with an anterior placenta. Short answer, no. I wouldn't waste much time being concerned about the risks of an anterior placenta without having a good reason to be concerned about those risks. If your provider says that on the ultrasound, your placenta is covering your scar and shows signs of being deeply embedded like a creta, yeah, that would be a time to be concerned. But if they don't don't go looking for things that aren't there, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because you'll find something to scare yourself about. So that is my very short spiel for the day. If you are looking forward to having a VBAC one day, dreaming of your VBAC, and you want to make sure that you are setting a strong foundation of knowledge, self-advocacy skills, and confidence to have a more positive and peaceful birth experience, I'm here for you. I want you to know that I have resources available for you, and I myself am available for you. So if you are ready to start taking control of your fear, standing up to your fear, overcoming it, I want you to check out my free Combating Fear During VBAC class. I'm so looking forward to supporting you through this time, helping you get answers to your questions, and just finding confidence in your ability to have a more positive and peaceful birth after cesarean. See you soon, Mama Bear.